You felt it, didn't you? That moment when they looked at you and said you were too much, too intense, too passionate, too emotional. You remember it, the subtle dismissal, the quiet mockery, the way they tried to dim you so they could stay comfortable in their shadows. Listen carefully. You are not ordinary. You never have been. What they call intensity is sacred fire. What they call anger is holy resistance. What they call too much is heaven refusing to shrink inside a human frame. You have felt the tension your whole life, the pushback, the isolation, the sense that your presence unsettles rooms. That is not coincidence. That is calling. There are 9 divine repercussions for despising the sacred fury within God's chosen one. 9 consequences that unfold when darkness miscalculates who it is provoking. 9 reactions from heaven when someone tries to suffocate what God himself ignited. Not everyone will understand this. Only the chosen recognize this pattern. If this resonates with your spirit, stand in it. Align with it. Because this message is not entertainment, it is confirmation. First, they awaken the fire they tried to extinguish. You have seen it happen. Someone challenges you, questions you, mocks you, attempts to humble you in front of others, and something rises inside. Not ego, not pride, something older, something deeper. Have you noticed that the more they tried to suppress you, the clearer you became? That is not emotional instability. That is ignition. What they mocked as too intense was heaven's ignition system. Sacred fury is not rage. It is divine intolerance for injustice. It is spiritual heat responding to spiritual pressure. They thought they were discouraging you. They were striking flint against stone. You felt the spark. Psychologically, rejection forces identity to choose. Either shrink or solidify. And you did not shrink. Every insult pressed you into clarity. Every dismissal refined your sense of assignment. Every attempt to silence you strengthened your voice. You started remembering who you were. That is the first repercussion. Their rejection activates the dormant force within you. You carried that fire quietly for years. Controlled, contained, measured. But pressure changes chemistry. When darkness pushes against light, light intensifies. When opposition rises, calling sharpens. When warfare increases, favor responds. The pressure they applied became oxygen. You grew stronger in private, more disciplined, more focused, more aware of your authority. They thought they were draining you. They were fueling you. Understand this. Chosen ones are not weakened by resistance. They are revealed by it. The enemy cannot extinguish what God anointed. He can only provoke it into full flame. And once that fire fully ignites, it does not return to embers. You are not too much. You are too aligned, too aware, too awake. They tried to put you out. Instead, they woke you up. And when sacred fury wakes up inside a chosen one, it does not burn wild. It burns with purpose. Stand firm in that truth, because what they triggered is only the beginning. Second, they expose themselves to spiritual acceleration they cannot control. You have seen this pattern. The moment they come against you, something shifts in the atmosphere. Time feels different. Momentum changes. Doors begin moving. Have you noticed how every major attack in your life was followed by sudden growth? That was not coincidence. That was acceleration. Every strike against you forced your spirit into overdrive. Every betrayal pushed you deeper into discipline. Every attempt to corner you activated a higher strategy. They thought they were slowing you down. They were stepping on the gas. Understand this. When darkness targets a chosen one, heaven responds with urgency. Favor does not retreat, it mobilizes. What was developing slowly in you begins to erupt with force. Clarity sharpens, discernment heightens, your voice strengthens. You start moving differently, thinking differently, praying differently. Pressure refined you in the first stage. Now pressure accelerates you. They miscalculated. Their opposition becomes divine permission for your expansion. You were patient before, measured, growing quietly in hidden seasons. But when they struck, something was authorized. Have you felt that sudden boldness, that inner knowing that it is time to stop shrinking? That shift from surviving to advancing? That is acceleration. The enemy intended delay. God initiated momentum. Light does not negotiate with darkness, it overtakes it. And here's the revelation they never saw coming. The moment they attacked, they surrendered control of the narrative. They thought they were defining you, exposing you, limiting you. Instead, they revealed themselves. When they tried to discredit you, their own motives surfaced. When they tried to embarrass you, their insecurity was unveiled. When they tried to silence you, their fear became visible. You did not have to defend yourself. Acceleration speaks louder than argument. You rose faster than they expected, stronger than they predicted, more focused than before. Because warfare reveals rank, and you are not low rank. Every attack is evidence that your growth is threatening. Every confrontation is confirmation that your destiny is advancing. Do you see it now? You were never behind. You were being propelled. Chosen ones are not derailed by conflict. They are launched by it. The world calls it drama. Heaven calls it activation. You feel urgency now. A push, a pull forward. That is not anxiety. That is assignment accelerating. Stand firm in that movement. Do not slow down to make others comfortable. Do not shrink to reduce their insecurity. You are in motion. And once spiritual acceleration begins, it does not reverse. They cannot contain it. They cannot redirect it. They cannot rewrite it. They struck, and heaven advanced you. Third, they invite divine scrutiny upon their own lives. You felt the shift, the moment they crossed that line, the moment their contempt became open, the moment they despised the sacred fury within you instead of respecting it. Something changed in the atmosphere. You did not have to respond. You did not have to defend. You did not have to retaliate. Heaven started measuring. Do you understand what that means? When someone attacks what God anointed, they are not just confronting you. They are confronting the oil on your life. They are confronting assignment. They are confronting destiny, and heaven watches that closely. When they despise your sacred fire, heaven begins examining their motives. Not publicly at first, quietly. Precisely. What was hidden in them begins to surface. Their jealousy leaks out. Their insecurity exposes itself. Their manipulation becomes obvious. You did not expose them. The light on you did. That is the revelation. You carry light whether you speak or stay silent. You carry presence whether you explain yourself or walk away. You carry weight whether they acknowledge it or not. And light does not argue with darkness. It reveals it. Have you noticed how the more they tried to question you, the more their own inconsistencies appeared? How their words started contradicting themselves? How their alliances began to fracture? How their confidence started cracking? That is not coincidence. That is scrutiny. The repercussion is not revenge. It is revelation. Chosen ones do not need to scheme. They do not need to plot downfall. They do not need to orchestrate exposure. Heaven handles that. Your assignment is to remain aligned, remain disciplined, remain steady. Because when divine scrutiny begins, it does not rush. It uncovers layer by layer. Darkness thrives in secrecy, but you are marked by light. And when someone despises the sacred fury within you, they invite that light to shine brighter. Not on you, on them. That is why you must not panic when attacked. Do not scramble. Do not over-explain. Do not try to win arguments. Stand still. Let the light do what it was sent to do. You are not being judged in this season. You are being validated. They thought they were putting you under the microscope. In reality, they stepped into it. And when heaven examines motives, nothing stays hidden. Not pride, not deception, not sabotage. You do not need vengeance. You carry revelation. And revelation is heavier than revenge. Remember who you are. You are not fragile. You are not exposed. You are not alone in this warfare. You are covered. And those who despise the sacred fire within you will discover that light does not just warm, it uncovers. Fourth, they strengthen the authority they tried to humiliate. You remember the moment, the public slight, the quiet betrayal, the way they tried to make you look small. They thought embarrassment would break you. They thought humiliation would humble you into silence. But something else happened. You grew heavier, not bitter, heavier. Have you noticed how your discernment sharpened after betrayal? You see through people faster now. You sense motives quicker. You no longer ignore red flags. That is not paranoia. That is authority forming. Your righteous anger was never chaos. It was calibration. Darkness tried to provoke you emotionally. Instead, it trained you spiritually. Every wound forced you to observe, to study patterns, to recognize manipulation. Light does not stay naive forever, and you are not naive anymore. They thought they were crushing a target. They were forging a leader. Understand this. Authority is not given in comfort. It is carved through pressure. The betrayal built command presence in you. You speak differently now. You walk differently now. There is less need to explain yourself. Why? Because pain removed your need for approval. Humiliation stripped away performance. Rejection burned off insecurity. You no longer need applause. You no longer fear criticism. That is dangerous to darkness. Have you felt that shift, that quiet confidence, that steady gaze, that internal solidity that does not shake easily? That is weight, and weight commands rooms without raising volume. The wound became weight, and weight became authority. You do not react the same anymore. You do not chase validation. You do not beg for understanding. You observe, you respond, you decide. That is leadership. Chosen ones are not promoted by popularity. They are elevated by endurance. The world tried to shame you. Heaven used it to mature you. What once hurt you now instructs you. What once wounded you now warns you. What once destabilized you now steadies you. You are not easily intimidated anymore because you have already survived the worst kind of warfare. Betrayal, and betrayal teaches rank. Darkness only attacks what threatens it. They saw potential before you did. They sensed authority before you embraced it. So they tried to embarrass it out of you. But authority does not disappear under pressure. It consolidates. Listen carefully. Do not resent the humiliation. It was training. Do not curse the betrayal. It was refining. You are not the same person you were before they tried to diminish you. You are sharper, stronger, more grounded. They aimed to reduce you. They reinforced you. And now your presence carries gravity. Not loud, not desperate, just undeniable. Fifth, they activate the law of spiritual reversal. You felt the sting of shame, the whispers, the sideways glances, the narrative they tried to build around your name. They projected weakness onto you. They framed your intensity as instability. They labeled your sacred fire as a flaw. And for a moment you questioned yourself. You wondered if you were too much, too bold, too different. But listen carefully. Heaven does not waste warfare. What they projected does not stay suspended in the air. It circles. It returns. There is a law in the spirit that the world does not understand. What is sent unjustly does not disappear. It redirects. Have you noticed how the very accusations they made started attaching to them? How the instability they claimed you had began surfacing in their own behavior? How the manipulation they hinted at in you became visible in them? That is reversal. You did not chase it. You did not demand it. You simply remained aligned. And alignment triggers divine justice. The shame they tried to wrap around you could not stick because you are marked, because you are covered, because you are chosen. So it slid off, and when it slid off, it did not vanish. It circled back. The narrative flips when truth surfaces, and truth always surfaces. It may take time, it may unfold slowly, but light never loses to darkness in the end. You endured the misunderstanding, you endured the silence, you endured the misrepresentation, and now clarity begins rising. The same stage they used to diminish you becomes your platform. The same audience that doubted you begins observing differently. The same environment that tried to shrink you starts making room. You did not force it. Reversal is not performance, it is positioning. Heaven specializes in reversals. Joseph was betrayed before he ruled. David was hunted before he reigned. You were misunderstood before you were elevated. Do you see the pattern? The pit precedes the platform. The accusation precedes the authority. The attempt to shame precedes the unveiling. This is not random. This is law. And you are no longer just surviving the warfare. You are witnessing power move on your behalf. You are carrying something powerful, something that cannot be permanently misrepresented, something that cannot be buried under rumor, something that will rise, Let them speak. Let them speculate. Let them underestimate. Because reversal does not announce itself. It reveals itself. And when it does, it is undeniable. Stand steady. Do not chase validation. Do not demand apology. Watch what unfolds. Because what they meant for your reduction is becoming your elevation. And this shift, it is only getting stronger. Sixth, they seal their access to the grace attached to you. You did not realize it at first. You thought favor was just for you, personal, private. But your life carries more than personal blessing. It carries territorial favor. When you walk into rooms, things shift. Opportunities open. Protection settles. Provision aligns. Not because you are lucky, because you are marked. Every chosen one carries atmosphere, carries oil, carries unseen covering. And those connected to you benefit from it. They may not even know it, but doors open for them because you were present. Storms bypassed them because you were near. Attacks were delayed because your anointing stood guard. You have seen it. People prospered around you. Stability followed your presence. Momentum increased in your proximity. That was not coincidence. That was shared grace. But when someone despises your sacred fury, something shifts. When they dishonor what heaven placed on you, they disconnect themselves. You do not remove them. They remove themselves. Understand this deeply. Dishonor disrupts access. When they mocked your fire, they mocked the source of your favor. When they tried to diminish your intensity, they dismissed the grace attached to it. And grace does not stay where it is dishonored. Have you noticed how certain people's doors started closing after they separated from you quietly? Not dramatic, not explosive, just subtle. Momentum stalled. Opportunities dried up. Support faded. They blamed timing. They blamed circumstances. They blamed everyone else. But the truth, separation became the price of dishonor. You are not just a person, you are a carrier of favor, a carrier of light, a carrier of spiritual covering. And when someone treats that lightly, access shifts. This is not ego. This is spiritual law. You were never meant to beg people to stay. You were never meant to chase those who reject your intensity. You were never meant to water down your fire to preserve connections. Let them go. If they despise the sacred fury within you, they cannot benefit from the grace upon you. Chosen ones must understand this. Not everyone is assigned to remain. Some are seasonal, some are strategic, some are removed for your elevation. Do not grieve what dishonors you, release it, because your favor is increasing, your territory is expanding, and only those who respect the fire can remain close to it. You are spiritually protected, more than you realize. And as access shifts, clarity sharpens, the circle tightens, the atmosphere purifies. You are not losing people. You are refining alignment. And what comes next, it will require that refined circle. Seventh, they intensify your spiritual rank. You thought the attacks were random. They were not. You thought the resistance was personal. It was positional. Have you noticed how the warfare grew heavier the stronger you became? That is not coincidence. That is rank recognition. Sacred fury is not temper. It is divine intolerance for injustice. It is heaven's refusal to let corruption breathe unchecked in your presence. When you feel that fire rise, it is not loss of control. It is spiritual awareness activating. And when that sacred fury is opposed, it does not explode wildly. It matures, it disciplines itself, it sharpens. You used to react quickly. Now you respond strategically. You used to speak out of emotion. Now you speak with weight. Do you hear the difference? That is growth in rank. Opposition forced you to regulate your fire, to master it, to wield it. Darkness wanted you impulsive. Heaven trained you into precision. You are not loud without reason anymore. You are not reactive without discernment. You measure, you observe, you strike only when necessary. That is not weakness, that is authority. Your spiritual voice has deepened, not just in tone, in presence. When you speak now, people listen differently. When you enter spaces now, the atmosphere shifts subtly. Conversations adjust. Energy recalibrates. You do not announce yourself. You do not demand attention. Yet something changes. Have you felt that? That quiet power? that steady gravity, that sense that you no longer have to prove who you are. That is intensified rank. Spiritual rank is not title. It is weight in the unseen, and the unseen governs the seen. The more they opposed your sacred fury, the more disciplined it became. The more disciplined it became, the more dangerous you became to darkness. You are no longer easily provoked. You are no longer easily manipulated. You are no longer easily distracted. You see patterns quickly. You sense motives early. You move with intention. This is not ego rising. This is authority solidifying. Darkness tests rank, and every test you survived upgraded you. You did not collapse under pressure. You refined under it. You did not scatter when attacked. You consolidated. Listen carefully. You carry something that cannot be erased. It has been forged too deeply. Too many battles. Too much refining. Too much training in hidden seasons. They tried to provoke chaos. They produced command. They tried to weaken you. They intensified your rank. And now your presence shifts atmospheres without effort. Eighth, they unleash protective warfare around you. You thought you were exposed. You thought you were standing alone. You felt the isolation, the distance, the silence when support seemed absent. But what if that isolation was not abandonment? What if it was shielding? Have you ever noticed how certain attacks stopped suddenly? How certain plans against you collapsed without explanation? How doors that should have closed stayed open? That was not luck. That was response. The moment they crossed certain lines, heaven responded. Not emotionally, strategically. There are lines darkness cannot cross without consequence. When they despised the sacred fury within you, they stepped into territory guarded by covenant. You could not see it, but battles began. Not in rooms, not on social platforms, not in conversations, in realms they cannot see. While they plotted visibly, protection moved invisibly. While they whispered, angels were dispatched. While they strategized against you, warfare was activated around you. You felt pressure, but you did not see the shield. Listen carefully. Isolation is not always rejection. Sometimes it is reinforcement. Sometimes heaven removes distractions so protection can encircle you without interference. You thought you were alone. You were surrounded. Chosen ones often walk through seasons where it feels like support has vanished. But what if that space was intentional? What if heaven cleared the room to guard you more fiercely? Because not every battle is meant for your hands. Some are fought on your behalf. Have you sensed it? That strange calm in moments that should have destroyed you. That peace when logic said panic. That protection when odds were stacked against you. That is not denial. That is covering. Darkness miscalculated. They assumed your silence meant weakness. They assumed your isolation meant vulnerability. They assumed fewer allies meant easier victory. They were wrong. You are not protected by numbers. You are protected by assignment. When you carry destiny, you carry defense. When you carry sacred fire, you carry guardianship. And when they cross lines tied to divine calling, the response is swift, not loud, but decisive. You did not see the battles happening behind the scenes, but you survived things that should have ended you. That is evidence. You are spiritually guarded, not fragile, not exposed, guarded. Stand in that awareness. Do not fear isolation. Do not fear quiet seasons. Do not fear reduced circles, because what feels like loneliness may actually be fortification. You are not just advancing, you are being defended. And if this is the protection at this stage, imagine what happens when full manifestation arrives. Ninth, they provoke the full manifestation of who you were sent to become. This is the part they never saw coming. They thought they were fighting your personality. They were confronting prophecy. They thought they were reacting to your attitude. They were colliding with destiny. Sacred fury is the final stage before open dominion. Do you understand that before a king rules publicly, he wrestles privately? Before authority is visible, fire is tested. Before dominion is established, opposition intensifies. You are not in a random battle. You are in unveiling. Every insult, every betrayal, every calculated attempt to belittle you, it was pressure, and pressure reveals what is inside. What was inside you was not fragility. It was rulership. Their contempt triggered your public unveiling. They tried to shame you into hiding. Instead, you stopped hiding. They tried to intimidate you into shrinking. Instead, you expanded. Have you felt that shift, that moment where fear no longer grips you the same way? That moment where you realize you are not asking for permission anymore? That is manifestation. The version of you that is emerging cannot be intimidated, cannot be negotiated down, cannot be silenced. You have endured too much, seen too much, survived too much. Darkness tested you repeatedly, and you are still standing. Not broken, not bitter, stronger, sharper, more certain. They wanted compliance. Heaven produced command. They wanted submission. Heaven produced sovereignty. And the greatest repercussion of all, they will witness the throne they helped you ascend to. Let that settle. The same voices that doubted you will see you elevated. The same ones who dismissed you will see you established. The same ones who mocked your sacred fire will see it burning openly, not chaotic, crowned. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were being prepared. Prepared for visibility, prepared for influence, prepared for dominion. Stand in that truth. Stop questioning your intensity. Stop apologizing for your fire. Stop minimizing your calling to make others comfortable. You are chosen, not temporarily, not conditionally. Chosen by design, protected by assignment, strengthened by warfare. Every struggle was preparation. Every rejection was redirection. Every attack was elevation training. What formed against you did not stop you. It shaped you. So now I ask you, will you fully step into it? Will you stop shrinking? Will you accept the rank, the authority, the mantle? Type the number 9 in the comments if you feel this shift inside you. Subscribe if you know this message confirms something you have sensed for years. Because this is not random content. This is confirmation. You were never ordinary. You were never overlooked by heaven. You were marked. You are rising. And nothing that despised your sacred fury will stand in the face of who you have become.